Who is the real Heisman frontrunner as of right now?
Oh man, for me, Ed, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll tell you who I think it is, and I think, and I called this at the beginning. I still think it's Milrow. I think they bounce back. Now, that being said, if Ashton Gentry it goes on his pace, like I talked about his pace, he's on pace to break Barry Sanders' records from 1987. He's on pace to have 2,680 yards, which Barry Sanders had 26-28. In 87, Barry had 31 touchdowns. He's on pace to have 41 touchdowns. He's averaging 10.8 yards a carry. If he even gets remotely close to that record, I think you have to give it to him. And I would love to see someone not in a Power 5 conference and a running back, that's not doesn't play for the Crimson Tide, you know. But I still believe that Jalen Milrow is the most talented player in college football, and that's who I think will end up winning this thing. But I love this kid, and right now, if he gets within, if he gets 2,400 yards, and at this pace, I think he will get over 31 touchdowns. You got to give it to him. You got to give it to him.
People are asking if he continues this pace and he doesn't win the Heisman, if a position player will ever win the Heisman again.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how can you not?
For a while, it's just like, do you play quarterback for Alabama? That I feel like that's how it's been.
Or you like the best player on Alabama?
Or the best player, yeah.
Are you guys done greasing the kid who played Portland State and Georgia Southern?
No, I'm not done because his pace that he's on is insane, Rafa. They showed the first couple games of Reggie Bush's season and Derrick Henry's season as Heisman. He is outpacing them insanely. And if he does this, if he's actually able to keep up with this for the whole season, he has to get it. Like, regardless of the opponents, if you're averaging 15 a carry, doesn't matter who you play. That is insane.
That right there, my friend, is the dumbest thing you've ever said. Listen, you just compared this kid to Reggie Bush and Derrick Henry, two Heisman winners of running back, and you forgot Mark Ingram. The difference between don't forget the difference between those guys that you named and this kid is that those guys actually played against football teams. This kid played against Sacramento State, Georgia Southern. Guess who's got this week? Hawaii. Woo! Slow it down. Let's look at Cam Ward's numbers: 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's thrown for 2,200 yards. Cam's schedule looking at Cam's schedule, he should be undefeated going into the ACC title game against Clemson, by the way. So if Cam stays undefeated, he's got 2,200 passing yards, by the way. And I don't think anybody's ever going to touch Peyton's 5,400 yards in a single season at Tennessee. But if Cam throws for 47 or 4,800 yards and he has 50 touchdowns collectively, he undefeated, he will be the Heisman. There is no doubt. This kid could rush for 2,500 yards. He's doing it against subpar opponents. He's doing it against two-star athletes. Do you know who the all-time leading rusher is in college? Do you know who it is? It's Humphrey. It's Humphrey from San Diego State, I believe. Bro, nobody gives a fuck. And before that was Ron Dane. By the way, shout out to Ron Dane, Wisconsin, baby.
Yeah, Heisman Trophy winner. Here's the thing, though. Gentry he was good last year. He could have went anywhere else in the country. He decided to stay. Now, if he's doing this in another uniform, the only problem is he's just wearing a different colored jersey that no one has ever seen someone win a Heisman out of.
That's the problem.
He didn't come out of nowhere. This kid has been great. He was great last year.
Did Kellen Moore get to New York with Boise?
He might have. He might have
been in New York.
He might have. Yeah, he might have.
Who?
Kellen Moore, quarterback for Boise, who was phenomenal at Boise. He's now the Eagles' offensive coordinator. This is the thing. When we get down to it, are you going to take Jalen Milrow, who, if he gets there with only one loss, will have wins against Georgia, Tennessee, probably LSU and Ole Miss if we look at his schedule. And he gets there, and he's got 50-plus touchdowns collectively, rushing and passing. Cam Ward, if he gets there, undefeated all the way till the ACC title game, because I think maybe they lose to Clemson, with almost 50 touchdowns. He's got 23 touchdowns total right now. He's got 20 passing, 3 rushing. He has 2 great comebacks in the fourth quarter. Okay. By the way, like Eddie said, doing of his own.
Yeah, that's
right?
the problem I have.
Self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted, but he battled back. He was down 25 last week in the third quarter. Those are Heisman moments. This kid is rushing for 260 yards on 20 carries against against Portland State and Georgia Southern. That's the problem that I have, is that the talent that he's facing is not the same talent that these guys are playing against. Like, do that. If you would have been doing this even in a Big 12 school, fuck it. All right. But we've seen running backs rush for 15, 16, 1,700 yards before and not get considered for this shit. So we're falling in love with this kid from Boise.
We haven't seen a pace like this. We haven't.
No, the pace is insane because we haven't seen anybody get to play Portland State and fucking Georgia Southern.
Oh,
Two games. He only played the first half, Rafa.
Of course, because of Portland State and Georgia Southern.
Still, though, you're putting up 180 in the first half on 10 carries? Like, what?
Yeah.
Against Georgia
I think
Southern,
the first play of the game
was 74-yard touchdown. And the craziest stat is his yards after contact is 783. He's getting hit at the line and running it to the touchdown.
Micah Parsons was glazing his ass on his podcast. He said he's playing on rookie mode on NCAA. He said
against Washington State, he ran for 259 yards. Against Washington State,
go Cougs, man!
259
against Washington State. Do they have a decent opponent on their schedule? Let's see. They get Hawaii this week.
No, they don't. That's why I'm saying if he continues at this insane pace, how can you not?
Yeah,
because he can record break if Cam Ward is undefeated and Milroe has 1 loss with 50 touchdowns. Those 2 guys are carrying their teams to the top 5 spots in the playoff. That's the difference.
I don't think Miami is going undefeated the way Cam Ward has been playing.
I can't unsee the Virginia Tech game.
You know that I was all saying, let's keep Miami in the rankings. Come on, Rafa.
Listen,
that was a touchdown.
He has 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That was not a touchdown. They ruled it on the field a touchdown, but in reality,
which means it should have stayed a touchdown.
It should have never been called. They made it right because the team was undefeated, and it's like, fuck it, we can't blow this shit.
That's what I'm saying.
So, but if you look at he still has 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Like, he has 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That's a 4-to-1 ratio.
3 pick sixes, I think.
Oh, so should we add those as touchdowns for him?
Yeah.
Should we add those? Should we add those as touchdowns?
No, you should take away. You should negative 17 touchdowns.
By the way, so Milroe, who you mentioned it, Milroe has 1,200 yards. Cam Ward has 1,000 more than Milroe.
Yeah.
Okay. Milroe has 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Cam has 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And Milroe's ran for 9. That's the big difference. Milroe's ran for 9. Cam's only run for 3. So, I mean, they're both going to account for over 40, probably 45 touchdowns against the SEC and the ACC. We're watching this kid do it against nobody. That's my problem. I'll tell you what.
Okay.
If Cam Ward's undefeated, Milroe has 1 loss, and Travis Hunter or Shador, because you probably only 3 guys are going, but let's say 4 guys can go.
I think they do 4. They can do 4.
Well, it's 3 or 4. We've seen a lot of times it's being 3, but let's say they do 4. And you have Cam Ward, who's undefeated, with 45 touchdown passes and 4,500 yards, probably more. And you have Milroe with 45 touchdowns, and he has 1 loss. And you have Travis Hunter and Shador. And Shador, the way at his pace right now, he's got 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Let's say Shador ends somewhere like 35 and 7 or 35 and 6 with 1 loss or maybe even 2 losses. And Travis Hunter has 1,000 yards receiving and 9 interceptions and 12 touchdowns. You're going to take the running back over those 4 guys?
The only person I'd be giving it over is Travis Hunter, actually. If they win the Big
So
12.
you'd rather take Travis Hunter over Cam
A
Ward
guy
going
who's playing
undefeated
both sides of the ball?
over a guy? Listen, over a quarterback who's literally carrying his team has been terrible. But that university has been terrible for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And now Cam Ward shows up and you're fucking still undefeated? Like the fact that I know what you're saying. Oh, I can't unsee the bad touch, the bad throws. That's fine. He overcame them. You know who didn't overcome them this week? Jalen Milroe didn't overcome them. Carson Beck didn't overcome them against Georgia, although he almost did. He almost did. And if he would have won that game, we can shoot his ass right up to the Heisman talk. They're playing real athletes on both sides of the ball. This kid at Boise, the best team he played was Oregon, who we know can't stop the run. And if Oregon gets slashed, gashed, and fucking fucked in the ass this week by Ohio State's running backs, we can discredit that game from them too. So I understand what you're saying. Phenomenal. He's probably going to have 3,000 yards rushing. Looking at his opponents, fuck, he could have 4,000 yards rushing. Do I think he's the best player in the land over an undefeated quarterback with possibly 45 touchdown passes and close to 5,000 yards? Come on. Come on.
Yeah, he's actually, and if you look at, he's literally carrying that team on his back, and maybe that's why he's outplaying his coach. Crystal Ball, I think, is garbage. He literally, I think when he leaves, Miami might again, fall into the depths of college football, because I do believe he is Miami. He is the guy who's doing everything over there. And I agree.
100%. And this is all based on him going undefeated. I mean, listen, they go to Louisville. So
Yeah.
they go to Louisville next week. They get Florida State at home, which we know how bad they've looked. They get Duke at home.
Duke has played well. Duke has played well.
Duke has played well. They're fucking 10th in the ACC, or they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they get the number 8 team in the ACC in Louisville next week on the road. They get Florida State at home, which is 4th from the bottom. They get Duke, which is 8 or 9, right in there. Then they get Georgia Tech, which is also, they're the 6th best team in the ACC, which has been trashed. They get Wake at home, and then they go to Syracuse. Okay? So where in there can he lose these games? Right? He can maybe lose the game in Louisville next week.
We didn't think Cal or Virginia Tech would
or Virginia Tech, yeah.
Virginia Tech mainly.
Well, we didn't think it, but realistically, before the season, Virginia Tech should have been a team better than what we thought they were going to be. And they lost early to Vandy, and they lost that game. So these teams that they have one player, and not one player, no disrespect to the receivers from Miami, but in reality, this team has been nothing for 5, 6 years, and now you brought in one player. It's changed the whole fucking thing. You are literally the top 6 team you're the 6th ranked team in the country right now, all thanks to this guy. That's the difference. And you're doing it in the ACC. You're not in the Mountain West. You're not in a 2-team Pac-12. It's not the American Conference. It's not the fucking Sun Belt. This is the ACC, okay, which is probably the 3rd best conference of the well, definitely it's either, they're better than the Big 12 in my eyes. So, and he's doing that. He can potentially go undefeated. So although he's had bad interceptions, he's battled back from that to win the game. Because it's like, oh no, they didn't win the game on a defensive play. They won it on his fucking arm. That's the thing. They won it on him. He's won those games. He's come back and won those games. That although he's put himself, and that I think has something to do with it. He's had Heisman moments. Has this kid had a Heisman moment yet? Has he had one moment where you say, oh, that was a Heisman moment? No. You saw Caleb Williams have Heisman moments. You saw Baker Mayfield have Heisman moments. You saw Jalen Milroe already has had Heisman moments. That's what you see. And unfortunately, he's a running back who we don't see Heisman moments too much anymore.
The only player that you guys didn't, Rafa mentioned him slightly, was Travis Hunter. If Colorado finishes top 3 in the Big 12, or even if, let's say they win the Big 12, if we're given best case scenarios, if they win the Big 12, do you give it to Cam Ward, who's undefeated, or do you give it to Travis Hunter, who has played both sides of the ball the whole season, and now their team just won their conference and then going into the playoffs?
It's like I hate to say this, but it's like a Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman situation. if they do get that far, they will split votes. Are they winning because of Shador, or are they winning because of Travis Hunter?
Well, and that's what I think. And I was going to tell you. So I'll tell you. I'm going to pull up. I want to pull up real quick what we're looking at with them. So that way, so we can kind of go through it. Since we're doing this shit, we can go through it and look at the stats. And dude, I'll tell you right now, it's the fucking quarterback. Because at the end of the, unless Travis Hunter is going to have fucking 10 interceptions, he has two. Okay, he has two. He's not top 10 in receiving yards. He's not top 10 in yards per catch. He's not top 10 in any, or he's not top 5 in any. I think he's 8th in yards or 8th in catches or something. But he only has 2 interceptions. So
I think it's yards.
Yeah, he's got 561 yards. So he might be 8th. Trey Harris has like 800 something.
He's 8th in receiving.
Yeah, so he's 8th in yards. He's got a bunch of catches. He averages, whatever it is. I think I saw it here the other day. He's averaging 12 yards. So he's accounted for 6 touchdowns. Okay, Shador has 14 touchdown passes on 3 interceptions. He's also been sacked 17 times. Most of them not his fucking fault because the line sucks. And Shador made a hell of a play to win the game or to get the game into overtime. If they win the Big 12 or are even in the Big 12 title game, it will be because of Shador Sanders. It will not be because of Travis Hunter. The man has 2 interceptions.
No, he caused that fumble to get the ball back so Shador could win that game. He had a huge play in that game.
But dude, I still think if think about this, Colorado's at home this week, right? And we went through the schedule a little bit. Kansas State and Arizona. Those are the next 2. If they're 6-1, they will be 6-1 because of Shador Sanders. So, and listen, if Shador throws for 400 yards this week and Travis Hunter has 12 catches for 180 and a touchdown or 2, all right. But if Shador throws for 400 yards this week and Horn has got 12 catches and 2 touchdowns and Travis Hunter's got 5 for 95 and a touchdown, who won? Who was a bigger factor in that game? Was it Shador or was it Travis Hunter? It's Shador. So if Colorado gets to if they're 1 loss or they're 2 losses and they're in that Big 12 title game, and it's going to be Shador over Travis Hunter. I think they're going to split votes, and you always have to remember, everybody thinks that the Heisman is an SEC award or whatever. Who has the most Heisman?
East Coast.
Who has the most Heismans by university?
Oh, that would be the University of Southern California.
Exactly. They're not. Last time I checked, those motherfuckers are on the West Coast. So let's stop with the East Coast bias. The problem is that for the last 15 years, the good football has been played on the East Coast, shown by national titles and playoff teams.
SC is the exception to the rule when it comes to East Coast bias. They're only exception to the rule.
Oklahoma, who's in the Midwest, has plenty of Heisman winners. Jason White, Baker Mayfield.
It's
a Midwest school, Ed. That's not an SEC school. It is now, but it's a Midwest school.
You can't put Oklahoma into the West Coast bias.
I'm not giving. No. Everyone says an East Coast bias. I'm not. I'm just giving you facts. They're in the Midwest, and USC has the most Heismans ever, and they're on the West Coast. So the best football is played on the East Coast, and we know it. That's where all the talent goes. From California, from Texas, from Florida, it all goes there. It doesn't go out in the Mountain West. It doesn't go to Hawaii. It goes to one place in Southern California, and then it goes all the way to the East Coast. From Oklahoma, that way. That's where the guys go and play football. That's where all the studs are at. That's who you're playing against. You're playing against studs. A player who's good in UNLV or in fucking Tennessee, Chattanooga, where the fuck is that guy playing next year? On the East Coast somewhere or at the University of Southern California. They're not going to Boise. They're not going to Arizona. So the Heisman will come out of the East Coast.